Right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much indeed for asking me to take part today. I was elected a member of the British Parliament just shortly before my 50th birthday, having had a career in law prior to that. And I came into politics because I was enthused by the independence referendum. On the other side from Sue, on the pro-independence side, although we do actually get on very well. After we lost the referendum, the late great Alex Salmond, who's much missed, realised that if the 45% of people in Scotland who'd voted yes, voted for the SNP, we would have a landslide. And we all thought he was mad, but as usual, he turned out to be right. And he went about encouraging people like myself and Michelle and Tasmina, who had a hinterland outside politics, to stand as candidates. And we all got elected as MPs. And I served at Westminster for 9 years. I just lost my seat last year at the general election. And during that time, I spent 6 years as a frontbench spokesperson on justice and home affairs for my party, and 2 years as chair of the UK Parliament's Joint Committee on Human Rights, and also some time as a backbencher. So I've seen politics from the perspective of somebody who came late to politics and had a career before that, rather than approaching politics itself as a professional career. And I've also seen politics from the very different perspectives of a frontbench spokesperson, a backbencher, and a committee chair. And in the short time we have as our introductory remarks, I just want to list 3 negatives and 3 positives I took from my time in politics. And these would apply across the board, but I'm going to say something from a feminist perspective as well. The first negative, both the Scottish and British parliaments the government has far too much power at expense of parliamentary scrutiny. This enabled Boris Johnson to shut down Parliament, albeit unlawfully, when Parliament wouldn't do what he wanted back during the Brexit crisis and before he had a majority. And it's also enabled a Labour government to be elected with a huge majority on the back of less than 34% of the popular vote. And I don't think that's very good for our democracy. Second negative, we now largely have a professional political class. People go into politics straight out of college or university. They don't bring experience from outside politics with them. And because it's a career for them, they are far too craven in towing the party line. And so we don't see the same diversity of viewpoints in political parties any longer, which I think is bad for our society. Third negative point, the tenor of our public debate. The tenor of our public debate has really descended in recent times. And in Scottish and British politics, it has included threats to freedom of expression and freedom of belief. We see these most particularly in the field of what I call the gender wars, the fight between sex realists and people who believe in gender identity theory. And also we see it in the reaction to the Israel-Palestine conflict, where people are being prevented from stating their legitimate concerns. I find this a very unfortunate development in Scottish and British politics. I think it's particularly bad for women, the nastiness of our public debate, the personalising of it and the viciousness of it. And I have to say, if I had known in 2014 what I was letting myself in for in politics, I would never have stood as an MP. But I don't regret it, because it was a wonderful experience and a privilege. But I do hesitate when people ask me honestly, particularly young women, to advise them about whether or not they should have a political career. And now for the 3 positives, just quickly. Despite the fact that our governments have too much power in the UK, the importance of the rule of law has been upheld by the constitutional role of the judiciary in the United Kingdom, and that's been underlined by recent events. Boris Johnson unlawfully prorogued Parliament, and backbenchers like myself prevented him from doing that by taking an action all the way to the Supreme Court, which ruled the prorogation of Parliament unlawful. Equally, here in Scotland, we have grassroots feminists and backbench politicians taking our government and public institutions to court in order to protect women's rights, and having great successes. And I think that's a really good thing in a liberal democracy. Second positive, the power of cross-party working. We wouldn't have our devolved Scottish Parliament if it wasn't for cross-party working. And during the Brexit crisis, we had to work cross-party to afford a proper opposition to Boris Johnson because the Labour Party was so hopelessly divided and weakly led. Third, the power of the committee system. If you have strong committees with independently elected chairs and independently appointed parliamentarians, then they can really hold the government to account. That happens at Westminster, but it doesn't happen in the Scottish Parliament, where the chairs and the members of the committee are too beholden to the government and the party whips. And that's something we need to change in Scotland. So I think I would tie up by saying politics is a difficult environment for anyone who goes into it. I think women face particular challenges, as women do in all walks of life, because of our biology. Our biology is our destiny, and because we live in a patriarchal society. But politics is too important for it to be left just to the political professional class. And I think it's really important for people from all walks of life. And I don't just mean people with professional and business backgrounds like myself and Tasmina and Sue and Michelle. And with apologies to my colleagues who I don't know so well, I mean people who just have a background. I don't care if somebody's been sweeping the streets before they go into Parliament. We need people with a background. And in the old days in the British Parliament, the Labour Party used to have lots of MPs who were working class. There's fewer and fewer MPs now who actually are from working class backgrounds. And I think that's a real problem in our society. Thank you.